For Complex News, I'm Natasha Martinez. The full legal fallout from Travis Scott's tragic Astroworld Festival has only just begun. So far, there have been 10 fatalities and hundreds injured. Now, lawsuits are piling up and people have some questions about who is exactly responsible. There have been over 100 lawsuits filed at the time of this writing. People like Travis, Drake, Apple, Live Nation, Cactus Jack Records, producer Sasha Stone, production company Scoremore LLC, ASM Global, that manages the stadium, Harris County Sports and Convention Corps, which owns the venue, have all been named in these various suits as well. So who's actually to blame? There's an argument that Travis Scott is largely due to his history of wild performances. Back in 2015, he was arrested and charged with disorderly conduct after his set at Lollapalooza because he encouraged fans in the crowd to climb over the security barricades. Also in 2017, he was arrested again after a concert in Arkansas for inciting a riot leading to several injuries. This was ultimately thrown out. But later that year, Scott was sued by a fan following a performance at Terminal 5 in New York City because the fan, Kyle Green, hurt himself after he fell from the balcony, paralyzing his left side. We spoke with entertainment attorneys and hosts of the podcast Legally Judgy, Nicole, Ahmed, and Alexa Camarena. The two hosts recently released an episode about Astroworld's legal fallout, and we tapped them to get into detail about who is most responsible and what this means for festival safety moving forward.
Listen, Travis has a really long history of encouraging his fans to rage and mosh pit and push up against the barricades, which has gotten into some legal trouble. You know, a couple cases have come out of New York, Arkansas, and even Illinois and Chicago after Lollapalooza. And so some of those details will be relevant, and the plaintiffs, attorneys will certainly bring those up along the way because they're going to want to try and prove that Travis has this history of asking people to get a little wild and crazy that leads to injuries, especially after all the injuries that came out of Astroworld as well as the deaths.
Of course people are gonna rush every time. Look at, he's encouraging people. In one instance, the one that Nicole mentioned in New York, after one of the guys falls from the third story balcony, even has security come and bring him on stage and presents him with a ring. And it seems like it's a reward for jumping off the balcony. This isn't, for example, Drake, who's on trial, right? Drake is not known as being a performer who incites fans to rush the stage and break down barricades, and who cares about security, right? It's Travis that has that reputation, and his fans are sometimes encouraged, to do that. I think the should have known is going to really come into play here, because they're gonna say, Travis, this has happened before. Look, you were sued all these other times, you were even found guilty, so you needed to do even more to make sure that everybody was safe.
But as much as Scott has had people get injured at his past shows, there is a chance that he couldn't be held responsible. In 2016, Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa were sued by 17 people who got injured at one of their Camden, New Jersey shows when a security barrier collapsed during their set and 42 people got injured. Snoop was ultimately cleared because the suit was filed in Pennsylvania and he lives in California, proving that it is just a bit harder to pin concert injuries on artists than it probably should be.
So usually performers aren't held liable in these cases, but the interesting point here is he was an organizer, and there's a higher level of duty of care for organizers because they're the ones that are charged with making sure everybody is safe. How culpable is he versus the others? And that's gonna come out to light in the trial by how much was he involved in these planning meetings? Was he there suggesting things, or was it a manager really, and it's just a name, right? But that kind of stuff will have to get fleshed out in court.
A frequent point that has been brought up is that the show continued on for over 40 minutes after it was declared a mass casualty event. Unearthed videos show fans desperately trying to get Scott to stop performing as people were getting crushed. One video even shows Scott apparently noticing an ambulance going through the crowd and stopping for a little while, only to resume and promising to make this motherfucking ground shake. These videos could make him liable if deemed he knew about what was going on and kept going with the show, but the situation is very murky.
I think we both think, actually, that negligence is going to be the biggest claim here. Whether it's negligence and/or gross negligence, we're going to see. Negligence basically means a person has failed to act with care, there's this thing called the reasonable person. What would a reasonable person have done in this particular situation? Did Travis act reasonably when he continued to perform? Was Live Nation acting reasonably when they put into play all these safety plans? And gross negligence essentially is like negligence, but worse. Did you act with reckless disregard is the legalese. Did you act with indifference? Did you not care?
Ultimately, it's all gonna spin or come down to the evidence here. And so they're gonna have to review the videos that Live Nation and Travis Scott have agreed to provide, as well as the many videos that we've now seen on social media from the various concert goers to see what was Travis saying explicitly, what was the scene around him from his vantage point? Could he hear anything through his mics or through his speakers saying, people are being hurt, stop the show? All of it's gonna come down to specific evidence from that evening and from the days before.
If I'm Travis's lawyer, I wanna see Travis pause long enough to have medical personnel attend to the person that was hurt. Because if the video shows that, that's gonna look better for Travis, because he's gonna go, yeah, when I saw somebody was injured, I stopped my show. I saw medical personnel attend to that injured person, and then I resumed my show. I didn't see anything else. And so from Travis's vantage point, you can't really say, well, you should have known what was going on if he really didn't see.
Regardless of who ultimately gets charged or not, this situation will have a drastic impact on Scott's brand and finances. He recently canceled a headlining performance at the Day in Vegas festival because of this. So in the wake of what's going on, what kinds of changes will we see when it comes to festivals moving forward? Well, there could be easy to guess impacts such as security costs and insurance premiums rising, but how will this impact how artists and fans interact with each other?
Unfortunately, we don't think that there's much that festivals can do to prevent the legal side of this from going forward or from avoiding lawsuits altogether. We talk about a lot, we've talked about in our podcast that there are terms and conditions that you are supposed to read over as a fan when you buy your tickets. Nobody does. We don't even read them and we're attorneys. But as you're buying the tickets, right, for these events, you click through these things that tell you what rights you're waiving and what rights you're giving, what basically rights you're giving to the promoters and the organizers to take pictures, to take videos, to use that in promotions, etc. And one of those things is that you waive the right, in most cases, to sue them if you were injured.
The learning point, and it has been in LA for some time, is we don't allow this type of seating. We're gonna come up with something that is gonna be safer. So for example, Coachella, right, implements a kind of like a modern day festival seating where they have metal barricades that basically groups people up. So it depends on the amount of people, but usually 5,000 people at a time are gonna be spaced out from each other.
Travis has, of course, come out and apologized for the situation multiple times. He's announced that he's covering the costs of the deceased and providing mental health services for those impacted. He's also announced that he is providing refunds for everyone who attended Astroworld, but there could be a potential legal catch to that. Houston attorney Tony Busby, who recently explained on Instagram some of the details of the massive $750 million lawsuit that Scott, Drake, Apple, and Live Nation are facing, said that no amount of money will fix what occurred on the night of November 5th. There's also language in the lawsuit that pushed back on the gesture of offering refunds and mental health resources by calling it a transparent and grotesque effort of the defendants to limit their liability. He also claims that clients have suffered broken bones, twisted knees, and psychological injuries. He also expects the number of lawsuits to continuously rise as others come forward.
The event organizers and Travis together are offering refunds to everyone who went to Astroworld Festival. Right now, it doesn't seem that any of those refunds have actually been processed, and Live Nation nor Travis have commented with any instructions on how to get those refunds. There's two scenarios. If it's an automatic refund with nothing that needs to be signed or, no terms that need to be agreed upon, then it would seem that nothing's being waived and people are just getting their money back. However, in the instance that Live Nation is sending out emails to the concert goers and saying, to get a refund, you need to sign here, you need to waive these rights, in that situation, they could be waiving the right to sue, which courts have actually been amenable to in the past and have agreed, like, you waived your rights, all you get is the money that you got as a refund. However, in this instance, given the gravity of the situation and the injuries and the deaths, it could actually be viewed as bad faith if Live Nation asked people to sign those rights away, and the courts might actually not uphold the waiver. And so it's not really clear right now, all that being said, if people will waive their rights, but at this point, nothing has been done.
Another more recent lawsuit was filed against Scott, Apple Music, Live Nation, NRG Stadium on behalf of 282 impacted individuals. The lawsuit is for a whopping $2 billion. In any event, we'll continue to watch out for what Astroworld's tragic turn of events does for massive live shows and those impacted. We are wishing the best to everyone that attended, and of course, condolences to those families of the ones deceased. That is all for now. For more on this and the rest of your news, subscribe to Complex News on YouTube and Instagram. For Complex News, I'm Natasha Martinez.